My parents said I'd regret leaving home. I was terrified when I first walked away, but I kept going anyway. And freedom felt better than I ever imagined. The metallic tang of fear, cold and sharp, was the first thing that hit me, long before the reality of the numbers on the screen registered. It was a late Tuesday evening, sometime in October, maybe 2 years after I'd finally walked out of that house. The dim glow of my laptop screen painted my temporary apartment a sickly blue, casting long, distorted shadows of the stacks of unpacked moving boxes that still lined the walls. My new life, the one I'd fought so hard for, the one where freedom felt like breathing pure oxygen for the first time, was still piecemeal, but it was mine. Or so I thought. I'd been trying to log into my business's primary operating account, a mundane task I did every other day, but something felt off. The password, which muscle memory usually typed without a second thought, wasn't working. Then the backup email failed. Then the phone verification. Panic, a cold fist, clenched in my gut, twisting tighter with every failed attempt. This wasn't a forgotten password. This was deliberate. My hands, I remember, started to shake, a tremor that ran right up my arms and settled deep in my chest. The cheap, insistent hum of the mini fridge in the corner, usually just background noise, suddenly sounded like a death rattle. Wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. A lot of you, I guess, will read that last part and think, why didn't you see it coming? Looking back, there were so many red flags I chose to ignore, folded into the fabric of my childhood like invisible seams. My parents, God bless their manipulative hearts, had always been masters of the subtle undermining, particularly when it came to me. My brother, Mark, was the golden child. He was brilliant, charming, always said the right thing, pursued the correct career path naturally, following in Dad's footsteps. I was the artistic one, the dreamer, the one who saw the world in shades of possibility, not practicality. That, in their eyes, was a character flaw, an inherent weakness. You're too sensitive, too emotional, you'll never make it on your own, my mother would coo, stroking my hair, her words soft as velvet, but sharp as shards of glass. My father would nod, a solemn, knowing look on his face, reinforcing the prophecy. You'll regret leaving home, kid. The world's a cold place. You need us. They'd say it with such conviction, such feigned concern, that part of me, the part twisted by years of their psychological warfare, believed them. I knew what you're thinking, just leave. And I did. The day I packed my beat-up car, leaving behind the sprawling, sterile mansion that felt more like a museum than a home, was the day I truly felt alive. The air outside, even the exhaust fumes of passing cars, smelled sweeter than the expensive, suffocating potpourri my mother insisted on. I moved 3 states away, started my own small, online artisanal candle business, pouring my heart and soul into every handcrafted wax. It was slow going, often lonely, but it was mine. And for almost 2 years, it truly felt better than I could have ever imagined. The terror they predicted? It was replaced by a quiet, fierce joy. The regret? It was conspicuously absent. Then came that Tuesday night. That bank account, specifically for my business, was the lifeline. My entire operation depended on it. Supplies, website hosting, shipping. When I finally managed to get through to the bank's fraud department after an excruciating hour on hold, the woman on the other end, her voice flat and rehearsed, informed me that the account had been accessed and systematically drained over the past 3 weeks. She rattled off a series of transactions, large, recurring payments to obscure shell companies, several substantial transfers to a personal account that wasn't mine, and finally, a complete zeroing out. My breath hitched. Who approved these transactions? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. There was a pause, a rustle of papers on her end. According to our records, all of these were authorized using the primary account holder's credentials and, in some cases, verified by 2-factor authentication from a registered device. My mind reeled. My credentials. My registered device. No, it couldn't be. Tone cue. Bitter laugh. That's when the forensic descent began, though I didn't have a fancy term for it then. I just knew I was being systematically dismantled, and the only people who knew my digital habits, my old passwords, the answers to my security questions, were my family. Specifically, my brother, Mark, the golden child. He was always tech-savvy, obsessed with knowing everything about everyone, especially me. I remembered years of him helping me set up accounts, optimizing my privacy settings, even troubleshooting my phone. He knew my digital DNA better than I did. The memory of him peering over my shoulder as I typed a password, a casual, innocent gesture at the time, now felt like a predatory gaze. I spent the next 2 weeks in a haze, a frantic, sleep-deprived deep dive into the digital detritus of my life. My tiny apartment, usually a haven of soothing scents and soft candlelight, transformed into a war room. Empty coffee mugs, crumpled energy drink cans, and discarded printouts littered every surface. The air grew thick with the smell of stale coffee and desperation. I started with my personal accounts, backtracking. Email archives, cloud storage, social media logs. I looked for anything, any anomaly. My old laptop, which I rarely used since getting a newer one, became my primary tool. I remembered Mark had fixed it for me once, claiming he'd installed some system updates. Now, that memory sent a shiver down my spine. I started downloading everything, every Google Drive document, every Dropbox file, every photo. I used a forensic data recovery tool I'd found online, a clunky, open-source program that promised to unearth deleted files. It ran for hours, its progress bar crawling at a glacial pace, the whirring of the laptop fan a constant, irritating drone against the silence of my terror. I felt like a digital archaeologist, sifting through layers of my own forgotten history. And then, the first real crack in their facade. A folder, hidden deep within an old Dropbox account, labeled Project X. I hadn't put it there. It contained spreadsheets. Detailed, meticulously organized spreadsheets. Account numbers. Dates. Amounts. And, sickeningly, my business name. The transfers, the shell companies, they were all laid out, a financial blueprint of my ruin. The internal monologue raged, how? Why? How could my own brother do this? The sheer audacity, the cold-blooded calculation of it, made my stomach churn. I found metadata on some of the documents within Project X that showed they'd been created and modified. On Mark's personal computer, specifically his work-issued laptop, identified by its unique IP address and device ID, during working hours. He'd used an old, obscure email account I'd barely ever used, one he'd helped me set up years ago, to communicate with these shell companies, posing as me. He'd even set up auto-forwards to his own email, deleting the originals from my account. This was no spur-of-the-moment act. This was a well-orchestrated campaign, weeks, months in the making. The realization hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just about money. This was about control. This was about proving their prophecy right, about ensuring I regretted leaving. It was about severing my narcissistic supply from them and their desperate attempt to reestablish it by destroying my independence. The next piece of the puzzle came from an unexpected place, my old phone. I'd swapped it out a few months before, but it was still functional. Buried deep in its system, using another, more sophisticated data recovery program recommended by a Reddit thread on cybersecurity, I found fragments of deleted text messages. Conversations between Mark and my mother. It was partial, but enough. Heard she's actually making a profit this month. Tone cue. Disdain. Mark, impossible. She's always been too soft for business. Are you sure the new strategy is working? Mother, it's working. The funds are being diverted as planned. She won't know until it's too late. It'll look like a financial mismanagement, a natural failure, just like Dad said she would. Mark, good. She needs to learn her lesson. She needs to come home. Mother, the air crackled around me. I felt a cold fury I'd never known. My parents. My own mother, complicit. It wasn't just Mark. He was the instrument, the loyal golden child executing their will. They were attempting a full-scale, technical takedown of my life, dressed up as a natural failure, designed to push me back into their orbit, back into their control. The betrayal was so absolute, so chillingly devoid of remorse, that it left me breathless. My hands were shaking again, but this time, it wasn't just fear. It was rage, pure and incandescent. I knew I couldn't face them alone. The emotional manipulation, the gaslighting, the sheer psychological warfare they were capable of, I needed an anchor. That's when I found Evelyn Thorne, a lawyer recommended by a friend of a friend. She specialized in financial fraud and seemed, to my desperate eyes, to possess the perfect blend of cynicism and sharp intellect. Her office was surprisingly minimalist, all glass and steel, with a panoramic view of the city that felt starkly out of place with the murky depths of human depravity I was wading through. She listened to me, stone-faced, as I recounted everything, the printouts of the spreadsheets, the recovered texts, the metadata logs spread across her polished table like damning evidence. So, your brother, at the behest of your parents, systematically embezzled funds from your business, likely using insider knowledge of your digital accounts and past passwords, all to force you into financial ruin and back into their care, she summarized, her voice flat, devoid of judgment, but with an underlying steel. Yes, I choked out, the word tasting like ash. They always said I'd regret leaving. They couldn't stand the idea of me being independent, of proving them wrong. I was supposed to fail, and when I didn't, they made sure I would. Tone cue. Weary. Classic narcissistic supply dynamics, Evelyn said, picking up a pen and tapping it against a legal pad. You removed yourself from their control, thereby cutting off their primary source of validation and power. They see your success as a direct threat to their narrative of you. Your brother, the golden child, is merely an extension of their will, probably seeking their continued approval and inheritance, thus enabling their reactive abuse. Her words, clinical and precise, cut through the emotional haze, providing a framework for the chaos in my head. The gaslighting, the initial doubts you felt, that's them trying to maintain their version of reality. Luckily for you, digital breadcrumbs are hard to erase completely. We talked for hours. I reconstructed full dialogues for her, trying to capture the insidious way my parents spoke, the subtle barbs, the way Mark would twist facts. I remembered a phone call with my mother after I'd opened my new business account, almost a year before. So, you actually went through with it, she'd asked, her voice laced with mock surprise. A candle business? Oh, darling, that's so sweet. But are you sure it's secure? All those online payments, you know how dangerous the internet can be. Mark, bless his heart, he's so good with computers. He could probably set up all your security for you. Just in case. Mom, I've got it handled, I'd insisted, irritation bubbling up. I'm using two-factor authentication, strong passwords, everything is encrypted. But darling, accidents happen. What if you forget a password? Or what if someone else gets in? Mark is such an expert, he could be your backup, your digital guardian angel. He practically knows all your old ones anyway from when he helped you with your college applications, remember? Just a little access, just for emergencies, sweetie. For your own good. Tone cue. Hollow, I'd relented, foolishly, thinking it was just a mother's well-meaning, if overbearing, concern. I'd given Mark some access, a backdoor, a tiny crack in my digital fortress. And he'd exploited it meticulously. That conversation, replayed in my mind, stretched out over 1,000 characters, each word a slow, deliberate twist of the knife. Evelyn just nodded, taking notes. They always provide the loophole, don't they? Dressed as concern, coded in love. It's textbook. The technical takedown we devised was cold, brutal, and effective. The evidence was irrefutable. Evelyn suggested we pursue a civil suit for embezzlement and damages, with the threat of criminal charges if they didn't comply. The goal wasn't just to get my money back, it was to financially cripple Mark and, by extension, send a clear message to my parents. They understood money. They understood status. Losing both would be a wound they couldn't simply gaslight away. The day of the confrontation was surreal. We met in Evelyn's office, the same sterile glass box. My parents and Mark sat across from us, their faces a carefully constructed mask of indignation and wounded pride. My father, in his expensive suit, looked every inch the powerful attorney he was, but his eyes held a flicker of something I hadn't seen before. fear. My mother, usually so composed, fidgeted with her handbag. Mark, the golden boy, was pale, his usual cocky demeanor replaced by a haunted look. Evelyn, utterly dispassionate, laid out the evidence. The spreadsheets, printed and bound. The metadata reports. The recovered text messages. The bank statements highlighting the fraudulent transactions. Each document was placed with deliberate precision, a series of digital nails in their coffin. My father tried to interrupt. This is preposterous. My son would never, Mr. Last name. Evelyn cut him off, her voice like ice. The evidence is irrefutable. The IP addresses, the device IDs, the timestamps, the specific accounts used, it all points directly to Mark. Furthermore, the communication we've recovered implicates both you and Mrs. Last name in the planning and execution of this scheme. This wasn't financial mismanagement. This was a calculated act of financial destruction designed to coerce your daughter back into your control. This is embezzlement, fraud, and potentially conspiracy. My mother started to cry, soft, performative sobs, reaching for my father's hand. How could you believe such awful things about your family, darling? We only ever wanted what was best for you. You're just so ungrateful. Tone Q. Stone-faced, I stared at her, unwavering. This wasn't the reactive abuse they expected. This was the calm, controlled anger of someone who had nothing left to lose. Best for me? I asked, my voice steady, though my heart pounded against my ribs. You tried to destroy everything I built. You tried to make me homeless, jobless, just so I would crawl back to you, desperate and broken. That's not love, Mom. That's manipulation. That's control. Mark finally spoke, his voice hoarse. I thought she would fail, eventually. They told me she would. They just wanted to speed it up. To protect her. He looked at our parents, a flicker of bewildered fear in his eyes, as if only now realizing the depth of the hole he'd dug. The negotiations were swift and brutal. My parents, faced with the undeniable evidence and the threat of public scandal and criminal charges, folded. Mark was forced to resign from his prestigious law firm, his career in tatters. They had to pay back every penny, with significant punitive damages, enough to secure my business for years to come. The technical takedown was complete. Freedom did feel better than I ever imagined, but the path to truly claiming it was paved with broken trust and scorched earth. The silence that followed, the absolute severing of all ties, wasn't peaceful. It was deafening. The cost of winning, Evelyn had warned me, is rarely just financial. It's an emotional war that leaves scars. And she was right. I got my money back, my business thrived, unburdened by their insidious influence. I sleep soundly, knowing I am truly free. But sometimes, in the quiet moments, I still taste that metallic fear, still hear the faint hum of that mini fridge, still see the cold calculations in those spreadsheets. I won. But a part of me, the part that once yearned for a loving family, died in that forensic deep dive. The regret they predicted? It wasn't about leaving them. It was the regret of what I had to do to stay gone. So, Reddit, I lay it all out for you. My parents, driven by a twisted need for narcissistic supply and leveraging the golden child dynamic, attempted to destroy me to force my return. I fought back with evidence, with legal force, and I won. But was it worth it? Was the absolute annihilation of my family's reputation and financial standing the only way to truly break free? Or did I become just as cold, just as calculating, in my pursuit of justice and my own version of freedom? Did I betray my own humanity by choosing this path? I genuinely don't know anymore.